and discover that, that happens a lot, not just here, everywhere in life. And so that high road leadership of, being flexible, being open, staying focused on the big picture, like we're going to talk about today, all came into play yesterday for me. So welcome everybody to another Mindset Mastermind. Glad you guys are all here and that we are in we're going to do 10 today, I was told, of high road leadership, live by the bigger picture. So tomorrow, 11, we'll wrap up this week. And then next Monday into exactly what to say and building our skill set. So had a great time in chapter 10 and 11 over the last 2 days myself. Lots of stuff highlighted. And as always, I want to kick it off to you guys first. What jumped off the pages at you?
I want to start with something that wasn't on the pages, but something that was in the call on the day before that, or before yesterday, where you challenged me to reach back out to my friend with ALS.
Awesome.
Very powerful. I didn't expect him to respond because it took him over a month to respond to my first message. And you had said, well, why don't you reach out to him and tell him that I was not exactly living my life, which I did. And I said, hey, you saw what I sent, but I just share with everybody. I said, I wasn't exactly honest, and I'm not living my greatest life. And I'd love to, if you'd reach out to me on Fridays and ask how everything is going and how I'm living up to how I should. And he replied that, quickly, which was quite wonderful and surprising and made me cry. And he said, yeah, most people don't live up to their potential until they can't. And so I will be glad to check in with you on Fridays.
Nice. And by the way, maybe another book that we bring in, the top 5 regrets of the dying. So how impressive of him, though, in this moment, and you in this moment, there's some real connection that's going to be happening there. So thanks for sharing that, Tom, and tying back into previous chapters where, Tom and others have actually taken it and put it into practice immediately. So what else, guys, from chapter 10? Don, I heard you guys did a recap of 9. So 10 today. What else you guys have?
I just wanted to just go back to Tom for just a second. Tom, it's really interesting that you were talking to a guy about that. I had a similar conversation about accountability over the weekend with a friend of mine, and he has a men's group that they started a check-in about. And he said, you'd be surprised how tough it is to get guys to be accountable to other guys, because we hold each other to that standard. It's different to be accountable to a lady, but another guy who knows how guys think, oh, that's different. I applaud that.
Awesome. Anything from chapter 10, client?
No, not right now.
All right. If it loops back, go thumb through that chapter, look it up, see what you got. Josh, I see your mic is hot. What do you got, my friend?
Well, it was interesting reading through the story of Nito. It kind of takes us back, and most of us have had a better start to this career than what he started, and just to see what he accomplished, making sure that nothing set him back. He had huge plans, and I remember when I told you that I was thinking about getting into this industry, and you made me think much bigger than I originally had thought. And this story was just really encouraging, because you figure out there are no excuses, right? Because most of us start at a point a little further along than this guy did, and just hugely super successful in everything he did, and he didn't let anything set him back. And that's something to remember when you get frustrated or when things don't go your way, or stuff like that happens.
Yeah, and think about just even the last 4 years culturally, how we have pushed away from that concept of it doesn't matter where you start. that anything's possible, how we pushed away from bigger picture thinking. Because as he said in here, bigger picture means we're playing the long game, the long run. And there's been so much focus on the short run, the here and now, the moment, and not that grace of Nito's whole story. I mean, it's like half this chapter is dedicated to Nito and his story of arriving here with nothing, like $50, and ultimately running a university because he always focused on the big picture. Now, I'm going to let you guys bring other details of his story out. There are amazing elements, time and time again, of his big picture thinking and how it's showing up.
Well, and it was even more than that, because I mean, he took a not well thought of university and truly transformed it, and didn't do it for his own glory, for his own benefit. He did it for the kids. He did it for the students to make a very different place of learning than anybody else really tries to these days.
Well, and that was the quote on 182, as he never lost sight of the bigger picture. Everything we did was focused on the student. Notice it wasn't focused on him. Look what I did with this university. It was, okay, what's next that we can make this better for the student? And the expansion of that university, the extra classes, all of that was key. I'm curious as the Dickens, what else you guys pulled out of here that he put in place to really live that bigger picture?
One of the things that, with regard to Nito, that really jumped out at me, and he talks about it on page 184, is the idea of educational malpractice. I had different educational paths for my two boys because they're different. With the older one, he got a degree in water science at one of the University of Wisconsin schools, and I was like actually shocked when we went to the orientation day, and it was like an indoctrination to liberal values. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but taking, kids from wherever they come from and starting this process, it drastically changed. And then after, it took about a year after school, like it came back probably to some middle area, but it was very intentional. And I thought that phrase, educational malpractice, like having a respect for the values that were instilled in your be it students or clients or whatever, respecting their model of the world. I thought that was a huge thing.
Yeah, and also being transparent about it, as he talked about, and I'm going to read this section in, Justin, because it was so powerful for me, is that he wants to be a place that supports the parental values, the parental leadership. It absolutely appears to be a more conservative university environment, which he is transparent about. And he said, one of the things that bothers Nito is how often parents work hard to give their children an education and send them off to a university only to have their children come home with their values changed. He calls this educational malpractice. He was determined that High Point University would never be guilty of it. Its website states, High Point University is a values-based institution. The values your family instilled in you for the last 17 plus years will be furthered throughout your HPU education. Clear up front, this is how we're going to do it. No subversive, no hidden, no, we're not going to tell your parents about it type stuff. Nito calls this appreciated value because parents know that students will receive a fantastic education that equips them to pursue careers that will make a difference in the world. Plus, the university will promote the values the parents embrace. Those positive values will help to sustain the student over the long haul. Think about how we've seen in our culture this shift that's now shifting the opposite way. And students who went in and got an education that didn't include values in a degree that really didn't have a financial future are now suffering because they played the short game in college rather than the long game. Who else has something from the content?
So, what is the difference between what he is saying and choosing what's most important? So, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but I know one of my challenges is trying to figure out on a daily activity what's most important for that day. In regards to what he's saying, he's looking at, I don't know if I'm saying this right. Let me think about it, and I'll rephrase it. I'll come back.
Come back with that, because there's so many other sections of this, of staying focused on the bigger picture, which is what this whole chapter is about. For him,
okay, I got it. What's the difference between the bigger picture and what's the most important thing?
Well,
picture.
Here's the interesting part. We could go through the 4 quadrants of urgent and important. Okay. Urgent tends to be short run, tends to be right now. Important tends to be what's the long game. So there's, in these 4 quadrants, I don't have paper and pen here, I'd write them. We have unimportant and non-urgent. When I used to walk through real estate offices as a home inspector to market, I can't tell how many times I walked through and saw real estate agents playing solitaire. Neither urgent nor important, yet that's what they were spending their day doing. And they wondered why the end result, the bigger picture of where they wanted to go, wasn't happening. So then we get to the urgent yet non-important. You know what? I don't have enough clean clothes, so I need to do laundry today rather than lead generate, to put it in the context of real estate. I need to take the dog to the groomer rather than do real estate. I have all these family errands to run or family projects to do rather than focus on the real estate, which you and I both know if we got that up and the revenue up, we could cover all that stuff through leverage quickly. Yet most agents spend their time on the urgent, non-important. So let's go now to important, yet not urgent. It's actually where you should be spending a lot of your time. That's big picture stuff. That's the planning and thinking bigger. That's taking time every day, 30 minutes to really focus in on, okay, here's the goal, here's the dream. Am I really doing what gets there? And if not, what should be happening in my world to get there? Maybe it's finding leverage. Maybe it's improving your calendaring skills. Maybe it is working on your database. Yet it's all activities that aren't urgent that truly will get you to the big picture. Maybe, Don, I may have irped a little. Maybe it's actually getting all your marketing in place. Actually focusing on a marketing-based business, which is the long-run piece. Right now, we talk about lead gen because that's the urgent to get revenue in. And once you start getting that revenue in, shifting your activities to what's really going to go big picture and take you there, which, God bless it, is marketing. And of course, there are things that are urgent and important, such as a client who is pissed off. You get a call from a client where something has gone awry or they perceive something has gone awry. One, it's important because it's your legacy, it's your reputation, it's that file, it's that relationship that's at risk. All things that are going to take you far if you maintain. And it's urgent because it's urgent to them. So for you, client, because I've witnessed it, I'd love you to really spend some time, and all of you, defining what's truly important. It's why in the calendaring system we go God, family, business, and we really live it and do it. It's not just language. And we schedule our life around spirituality and family first. Again, today, it's great we're having this conversation. This morning, we have the full wall calendar out on the kitchen table here because we now have a place. And Marcy and I were working on the rest of this year. And we will order the 2025 calendar in a week from now when we get back. so we can start planning the next year. Everything that's important. So my family, man, I'm going to see my son in Auburn, doing some things with him here next week. And then I'm going to take my entire family for the first time ever to Las Vegas for a family vacation. And then 4 weeks later, I'll be back. By the way, and then I'm going to move my middle son to Houston to his new place so he can start his new job. That's Wednesday through 4th of July next week. And then later in July, go back to move my youngest son again. All planned out, all calendar. So the work I'm doing now, really cranking on the lead gen for me for talent, is so I can take that time off. That's focused on what's important, yet not urgent, and front loading it in my day.
Hey,
Does
Russ.
that make sense, client? Focus on that big picture stuff that really matters. Put in the effort, even though it's not urgent in the moment, and life changes. Just by show of hands, how many of you guys right now feel like you're a firefighter running from fire to fire to fire in your life? If you're doing that, you're not focused on the truly important, non-urgent. What else you guys have?
I'd like to take that and tie it back to something that really grabbed me on page 173. And he didn't use these words, but I'm going to call it creeping, which I'll explain. But if I read from here, the ability to see the bigger picture is like getting a 30-yard head start in the 100-yard dash. It enables heads of state to be objective in conflicts coming. It allows business leaders to notice problems and solutions before others do. It empowers entrepreneurs to recognize opportunities in the marketplace and seize them before anyone else can. Anyone who possesses the ability to see the bigger picture and uses it to take action can get a head start on others. That's why the race isn't always won by the fastest person. It's often won by the person who starts first. So I really love that part because occasionally I still race dirt bikes. My kid likes to tease me because there's like a new school of how to do it. But in the old days, we would back up a foot or two from the gate. And when you knew the gate was about to drop, you'd start creeping. That's why I called it creeping. And I realize this in my daily practice today, like being on this call, getting up and walking, reading, doing this stuff is really sharpening the axe. So it's important. It's making a huge difference in who I am as a person, but it's not urgent. Nobody's making me do that. I think it's even more important because it's not urgent. And us having our heads right when we meet with clients or run into these issues in business, that momentum that we have is that 30-yard head start. I mean, you can't show up to the appointment 30 yards early, but I think what we're doing is all that.
And I absolutely
did you
agree
hear what
with
you
you,
just-
Justin,
Oh.
that this is the important stuff. Your business grows to the extent that you do. Your development matters more than the actual activities. And on page 183, he talks about how to be thinking big picture. And number one out of it, all his life, Nido had dedicated himself to personal growth and being true to his values. That's where he focused a big part of his energy, effort, and mind into those pieces. And he had done the inner work needed to make him successful on the outside. His early years were filled with adversity and challenge. He had to learn English, and he was determined to master the language so that he could become a public speaker. He worked his way through school. He launched his first business. He had done all the work on him first and improved his mindset and skill set to be able to take it to the next level. Client, go.
No, I just wanted to just give Justice some kudos. I love that. It's more important because it's not urgent. So you're saying that's the forest for the trees mentality. You're looking out because it's more important. I'm not going to give it that scramble that I do when things are urgent. Oh, it's, and I think you're right. we do have what's important mixed up with what's urgent. And just because it's urgent, we think that it's important. That is some long game thinking. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. You know what else I appreciate, client? One of
What's
my
up?
favorite people, incredible, powerful agent, Kendra, has shown up today for the first time. It's great to see you not only show up, she turned her mic or her camera on so we get to see her. So welcome, my dear. It is great to have you. What else do you guys have from the content? Or what you're taking away from the conversation? Nafritha, go for it.
One of the things that I took away from that chapter was, I guess, going into what you just said, enlarging the bigger picture. He talks about how the high road leader is able to see more and before. And I feel like it all falls into one of the things that keeps coming out to me is the choice, right? We have the choice. I don't know what chapter it was, but one of the chapters, there was something he wrote that says, there's a choice you have to make in everything you do. So keep in mind that in the end, the choice you make makes you, right? So what choices are we making? And then it kind of made me think of, choosing to allow ourselves to think bigger, choosing to allow ourselves to have a different perspective, right? He also said something about before you tear down the fence, ask why it was put there in the first place. And that kind of stood out to me a lot, because many times we're like ready to go, 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 or attack, but it's like, are we asking the right questions? Right? Which I guess is leading into the next book that we're going to be reading. But are we asking the right questions before we actually act? And then another thing that kind of jumped out was the confirmation bias. That tendency to search for or interpret or recall information to support our beliefs and our values. So if we're thinking positive, if we have the I can do it mindset, then we find those things to build on that, to support that. But if we don't, we're finding things to support, well, I can't really do this, well, I'm not going to get this listing, well, I don't know how to go about approaching this situation. But it all goes back to the choice. And the last thing I'll leave is, we all live under the same sky, but we don't have the same horizon.
Nafritha, you're making me smile. You are speaking like John Maxwell. You're finding nuggets and internalizing and making your own. Because again, on page 179 under collaborative context, his big takeaway there, I learned something because I ask a lot of questions and I do a lot of listening.
Right.
That's the magical place. And I love that you're already playing there, my dear. What else you guys have? If
There
you're
was another
speaking,
thing, if no
go
one's
for it.
speaking.
Go.
Oh, he said good leaders fight against limiting their vision. Right. So that made me think of the daily fight we have, right? We may wake up in a good state, but throughout the day, I think we're constantly under an attack, right? Like there's always that good and that bad person that say, hey, let's not follow through with the plan. Or, hey, whether it may be, something so small about what you're going to eat or how you're going to respond to the person on the road that cut you off, right? Good leaders fight against limiting their vision. So how do we expand the vision?
Yeah, and having that openness. Fun that you brought this up, because one of the things I was talking to one of my agents that I coached today, because she's been having a lot of challenges, and I brought up from, again, earlier in this content, it talked about a great leader, a high road leader will not have 2 great days in a row. Because you're constantly under challenge, pressure, you're taking on new things, you're looking for where you get to serve others, and there's going to be difficulties. And I just want to add to that, because at least it's my perspective. If you embrace them as fun, if you embrace them as education, if you keep your sense of humor, even in the midst of what some people would get worked up over and negative over, you have the opportunity to make it a great day.
I need to practice that more often.
So do I, and so does everybody else. And yet I'm steps ahead of you, because yesterday it was, and Don and I were talking earlier today, the Puerto Rican driver's license process is unique and constantly changing. And so, Jalissa, I was able to get it done yesterday. Here. So I'm not lying. I actually have one.
Wow.
Yeah, we got it done. And yet a lot of people, I was looking around me, were like cranky and worked up. And man, it was just another educational day for me. So who else? We got 2 more minutes. Don, you got something to add, brother?
I do. One thing I was
Awesome.
going to say is yesterday when I was describing that you were there, I said, if you've ever had a DMV experience in the States, know that this is less than that. And that Russ is going through. I said, he's one step north of hell. Anyway, that was my description of that. But anyway, I want to go back to the book. We've talked about pain, pleasure for years. We choose to change by choice, or we choose to get changed by circumstances, right? So we can choose to change. On page 179, I love the fact that he said leaders have to be willing to change, make changes when things are still going well, even if they want to avoid decline. If they want to avoid decline, I think that this goes to some of our messages to agents who are not wanting to make a change because it's okay where they are. And it's like jumping out of an airplane with no parachute, and you're all the way down going, so far, so good, so far, so good, so far, so good. But at some point, it's not going to be so good. And we've got to be willing to make the changes when it's not necessary, instead of waiting for the pain of change to be forced upon us. And right now I'm watching the industry changing. I'm watching agents not be prepared for it. I'm watching companies change, profitability going down, agents not being willing to change. And I got to tell you, it's a message for us to communicate to the world right now. That's a powerful message.
And that's a great way to wrap up today. Love you guys. It is Thursday. No, it's Wednesday. Excuse me. So we have Wired Wednesday. Hey, it all blends together when you're going 7 days a week like I have been. So our dear friend Maria running Wired Wednesdays 1 to 2 Central. So you guys can get into this room, learn your KV core better, get it implemented right there, take action in the moment, and just keep plussing it every week with her. And then 2 to 5 o'clock Central, this room is popping with people having conversations. If you
doesn't Celeste have something?
I don't know if she does today, because I know she's having some family challenges.
Yeah.
So let's keep her in our prayers. Let's keep a good smile for her. And I'm not going to put that pressure on her today, as I know some of the things she's going on behind the scenes. Okay.
Hey, Russ, I did put the link in the chat box for everybody. I was talking to Maria this morning and saying, hey, if you're part of the people that are going to be working on moving the Beyond Limits event out with Sean Swarner, Julissa Perez's husband, by the way, this gigantic story. You're thinking about getting other people. Get yourself registered, and it's on your mind. Don't get yourself registered. It's not on your mind. We're not thinking about it. We're not moving towards it. We're not doing anything. Get registered. Click the link. Go get registered. It's free. And then tell people about it. Let's go. Okay.